Well, oh well, I got a special guest in the building today. A special guest in the building today, right now. He goes by the name of Blake Lewis Jr., Washington football team NFL insider slash TV analyst, and is the owner of his successful sportsjourney.com media, and also has a podcast called After Practice, where you can listen to on Apple or wherever you get your podcast or listen to your podcast. Blake Lewis Jr., how's it going, my brother?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back with you.
Yes, sir. So I definitely had this brother on my podcast, my sports podcast, with my other co-hosts. So I definitely want to jump into the show a little bit. We know that in this media industry, I'm just entering, I'm trying to work my way up. But being here, I would say at the bottom, what I learned so far is that there is a lot of, I would say, fake people. I'm going to just call it what it is. I'm not very shy on my show. There's a lot of fake
No, and there's
people.
100% true.
A lot of people that want
100%
to
true.
step on you to make sure they get up. And a lot of people, when they get to the
Absolutely.
top, they lose their humbleness. A lot of
hmm
people, when you at the bottom, you trying to get people to come on your show, a lot of guests. How challenging was it when you was working your way up to get these guys to be on your show? Get a guy, a sports athlete, to come on your show to help build your platform. Because I'm pretty sure once you started moving up, that's when they started reaching out to you. Whereas when you was reaching out to them, they was like, yeah, I'm going to hang up the phone real quickly. And now they started calling you.
You,
How was that
well,
challenging?
you know, it's interesting you say that because I think to a lot of guys, they see how my approach is in the locker room. Like I'm not one to put a mic in somebody's face or, you have your media scrum where everybody's going after the same person. I don't do that. My thing is I want every conversation I have with these guys to be personal. I want it to be something where they know they can trust me when something needs to be said. As far as I still have a job to do, but there are certain things that I know about guys, things that I've had guys in my house for dinner. I don't go out, and need to advertise that and pump that out and things like that. I just know how my approach is. And my approach is you just respect people individually as men. You respect them the way you would like for somebody to handle your situation. I don't want my personal business all out in the street and things like that. So, it's the same approach that I have. Even if it's something that fans may think is juicy stuff, everything doesn't need to be known. What they need to know is how this guy's going to perform come Sundays, so that's how I try to keep it. As far as, having those guys come on my shows when I called, it was a little different for me just from the standpoint that, for 8 years, I was drive time radio host on ESPN radio. So it was a little easier to get guests. I had people call in to book the guests. I may give them a number to call, something like that. But I always used to tell people the guys that I targeted, I really did, that I wanted to hear their stories were guys that were on the practice squad. And I always use, one guy in particular that really blew up overnight. And I remember, situation where I had him coming out with me, and this was Victor Cruz. He was on the practice squad for the Giants. And I remember at the time his girlfriend was like, begging us to like do stuff with him just to get him out there. And, he wanted to do this long term anyway. And I said, okay, let's do it. And Victor and me hit it off. We became good friends. And I remember one venue in particular, because I used to do these shows out in sports, restaurants, bars, things like that. And I remember this one venue telling me they didn't want him to come back because he was a nobody. Nobody knew who he was. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a professional athlete. And they're like, yeah, but he's not playing a lot, blah, blah, blah. And you already know what happened. When he blew up, they were calling and saying, hey, can you get Victor to come out? We'll pay whatever. We weren't interested because at the end of the day, you know when you've been disrespected, when you've been quote unquote dissed, and I remember those type of things. So I always say if you weren't on my team from the very beginning, you're never gonna get on my team going forward. So that's my approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's another example of how fake this industry is. They didn't want Victor Cruz on your show. And then when the brother started blowing up, doing the cha-cha slide and won himself a Super Bowl, they wanted him on your show. That's another example, y'all. I only give y'all the real here on this show. But moving on here, before we get into the sports topics, I would just say this. We are in a pandemic. I know that You know, a lot of people have picked up a lot of habits, good, some bad, during this pandemic. One of my bads is I have been eating. Brother out here looking like Norbit right now. But one of the good habits I picked up was that I valued family more. I valued having, even if I don't have a lot, it's a lot to me now. So I
Mhm.
valued a lot of things more. I valued being able to have a basement where I could go down and record. I don't need a studio no more. What are some things that you picked up during this pandemic? Some good habits, some things that, have you ever sat down and think, well, I'm thankful for this? What are some of the lessons that this pandemic has taught you so far?
Well, I can agree with you on the family aspect. My sister and me, for instance, have gotten really close over the last year and a half, and a lot of that is because a year ago my father passed away, and we realized my mom had passed away, 13, 14 years ago, and we realized, at the end of the day, we're the only siblings. It's just she and myself. So we realized outside of our kids, we're really all we have. And, so we just decided, to stay more in touch. And it just ends up being that we talk like, if not every day, every other day. and that's a lot because there was a time where I may not have spoken to my sister, but maybe once a month or once every 2 months. And, we still lived here in the same town. Ironically, I used to speak to her more when I lived in Florida and she was here than I did when I was here. So pandemic definitely wakes you up for that.
Yeah, soon, y'all, I'm going to be doing training camp. I will be doing training camp soon. I'm telling you right now. Fast forward a couple months, I'm gonna be a whole another animal. Stay tuned, y'all. Don't rush the process. Trust the process. We getting there. But let's
Yeah.
move on here to the sports topics. I want to get into the juicy sports topics with you. Derek Chauvin, right? He was found guilty of murdering George Floyd. We all know the situation with that, and there was a lot of good feedback that we've been getting from our sports athletes. I feel like sports athletes these days are just they are doing more than just tossing the football and shooting a basketball in a hoop. They're very vocal about, you know, black empowerment and just change in America in general. But you do have those few negligent people like a Brett Favre who will come out and say what he said, which was he didn't believe that the cop intent was murdering George Floyd. I want to know your thoughts about Brett Favre, his comments, because this is not the first time that Brett Favre has came out with interesting comments. Deshaun Watson, I remember he wanted to be out. He wanted to get out of the Texans. He wanted a trade. Obviously we all know the Texans and everything that was transpiring over there, and everybody was supporting Deshaun Watson before the allegations and everything came out. But Brett Favre was one of those few that was not in favor of Deshaun Watson, wanted a place to, a new place, a new home. When Brett Favre, he know how it was to move and be on a new team for his benefit of his career. What are your thoughts on Brett Favre comments on Floyd and his comments in general as of late?
Man, listen, I've always said if you don't have anything positive to say, then you need to keep your mouth shut. And it's as simple as that. I mean, you have to think before you speak. And to say that, that Derek Chauvin, his intent wasn't to kill, I'm just going to put it this way. No, I don't know what his intent was, but I know his intent wasn't to keep that man alive either. I mean, just from watching what I watched for all those minutes. So, am I going to go out and say that he intentionally tried to kill the man? I'm not going to say that, but I'm not going to say either that there wasn't some malice in his behavior, because it clearly was in his eyes. It clearly was in the fact he kept his knee on the man even after the paramedics came. So I don't know what he was trying to accomplish, but it wasn't to have George Floyd be in a good situation, put it that way. So with all that being said, Brett Favre is, sometimes people say things to be heard. Sometimes people do things because it's clickbait, it's ratings, it's attention that you're not getting in other facets of life. So, in that kind of situation, like I said before, Brett Favre is losing a lot of points with a lot of people, including myself, because it just comes across as insensitive. It comes across as if he's just, as opposed to saying, like, yeah, exactly. As opposed to coming out and saying that, the cop he can't understand why he would do that. Well, that's the whole reason why we're in the situation we're in the first place. And again, I say this all the time. There are a lot of great white people out there. There really are. We can't put everybody in a bunch and say everybody's bad, everybody's good. But at the end of the day, I do think that there are a lot of white people out there, good ones, that they don't understand. They just don't understand the things that we have to endure, we have to go through. And they may want to understand, but it's almost like, riding a bike. We've ridden a bike over rocky roads for so long. We know how to navigate over rocky roads. You put a person on a bike that's never done that, they might struggle for a little while. And I think that's where we are right now as a country. The people who want to understand or trying to make light of things, their mind isn't it's not wired to understand it. It's never had to be wired to understand. So now that all this stuff's coming at people, I just think they get in a defense stance where it's almost like, and I know I have some white friends, just good people, just people at the end of the day. I don't see the color, but they're good people. But a couple of them have asked me, what do you think of this? Do you think that if I said this, then I'm racist? No. We know we know what's up. We know who's
Exactly.
who. But again, and I say to them, you don't have to defend yourself. We're not saying that this is a white versus black thing. That's not what any of us have ever said. What we're saying is this is a humanity situation. And if we can't be welcome to the table to eat, then nobody should be comfortable eating their food. That's just the bottom line. And so I'm comfortable getting at the table to eat, your food's going to taste better. And we're going to make sure it's better. And so our food's better. That's just how it is. So, again, for Brett Favre, though, just shut your mouth. Just stay quiet if you can't say anything positive.
Yeah, I just think that when it doesn't affect you, you have a totally
Mhm.
different approach. And we live in a society where, and I was talking about this with my last guest, we live in a 24/7 society. Everybody's working, everybody's trying to get to the bag. Marshawn Lynch, he would call it get to the chicken, protect your chicken. And a lot of people, when it doesn't affect you, you don't sit back and realize that, all right, this is going on. So your approach to the situation is totally different. You don't sit back and say, well, African Americans, they have this harder route. They think that we like to get on the mic and we like to talk about how hard we had it. But it's actually facts. For example, there's a lot of things that's going on with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. And what I mean by that is that Justin Fields, his stock keeps dropping every day. For some
Not
reason,
understanding that. Not
it,
understanding that at all.
it keeps dropping. But then you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's taking mild flack. Not a whole lot of flack. It's nothing big. But it was a mild flack because of his statements about him not having a chip on his shoulder. And I'm saying to myself, I don't understand the backlash because Trevor Lawrence does not have to make that up. He had always been highly recruited. He was talked about being the next Andrew Luck when he was a freshman in college. He just got married. He's going to be the number one pick. Justin Fields, on the other hand, that's a guy that does not have to make up having a chip on his shoulder. He should already have it because his stock keeps on dropping each day.
It's a double standard. I mean, let's call it like it is. I'm seeing Davis Mills' name popping up everywhere now, and all I kept hearing for the past year was Trey Lance is a good talent, but he hasn't played a lot, doesn't have a whole lot of experience. So all of a sudden, Davis Mills doesn't have a lot of experience. And, people have automatically said that he could be anywhere from a late first rounder to all the way to a third rounder now. This is for a guy that if I mentioned his name outside of Stanford circles and outside of the Pac-10, maybe Pac-12, a lot of people probably wouldn't have known who he was. So I just think that there's still some underlining tones that I don't like, that haven't changed. Although, last year at one point there were 16 starting African American quarterbacks. And, that number is going to grow. It's just naturally going to grow with the way the game is being played now. You need an athletic, mobile quarterback. And those two terms, athletic and mobile, used to be a curse. That used to signify black quarterback. One can't read defenses, one not the brightest, one leadership qualities used to get questioned. Those are the things that we were dealing with for so long. And now you see these great quarterbacks who just happen to be black along the way, changing the way the game's played. And guess what? Now their white counterparts are introducing those aspects to their game. You look at Josh Allen, he's very mobile. Baker Mayfield can get outside the pocket. So it's just the way the game is going. But yeah, there's still some underlining tones, and that's going to change when those older scouts who've been doing this for a long, long time, used to push that narrative that I was just talking about. When they're no longer of service, you're going to start seeing more of those changes. But that ice has been chiseled away quite a bit. It's not gone yet. It's not completely broken, but it definitely has been chiseled down. And I think that's the reflection in general of where we are again with our country. The ice is starting to be chiseled away, and it's not gone. And that meaning chiseled away, you still have decades to chisel away at this, but finally it's being chiseled away, and ironically it is being chiseled away by multiple races, and that's a good thing. That's why I always try to stay positive. I understand, it's frustrating to us. It's disheartening to see things like George Floyd. It really is. It's disheartening. But if you have faith and if things are going to get better, you just have to keep pushing towards that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the stone the builder rejects becomes a head cornerstone, because you alluded to it. All those narratives that was portrayed out in the media, that's still portrayed today. Well, look at the quarterbacks in the NFL. The majority of the quarterbacks that are in the NFL are predominantly African American now. So you just got to show it on the field. But I definitely want to get into the Washington football team with you, since I know you cover the Washington football team. It's only right. The NFC East is going to be a very, very interesting division this year, because you have the Cowboys, who just gave Dak that massive, massive contract. The question is, will Dak live up to that contract? You also got the Giants, who made big splashes during the free agency, getting a guy like Kyle Rudolph, tight end, getting Kenny Galladay, getting Adoree Jackson. They made a lot of splash moves. I think the message they were sending was, Daniel Jones, the ball is in your court. Do something with it. You also got the Washington football team that, yeah, they did not make the biggest splashes, but I think they made the calculated moves that will help their team today. Getting a guy like Curtis Samuel, who is a guy that's very good after the catch. He can give you a lot of yards after the catch. You can put him in the backfield. You can put him in the slot. Third down, he does it all. He's handy-randy. And you also got Adam Humphries, a guy that you can throw in the slot. Me personally, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I can't forget about him. That's an experienced guy who changes your offense, because he can push the ball down the football field as well. A lot of the pressure on Terry McLaurin is going to be off now. I'm interested in seeing the Washington football team. If I had to bet today who I think is going to win that division, I'm going with the Washington football team, because, number one, they won it last year. They still have the best defense in that division, and I think their offense got better. Do you think that the Washington football team should be the favorites to win the NFC East today?
Yeah, I mean, they should be, but they won't be. Everyone's going to go with the Cowboys. That's just always the chic pick every year. It's the Cowboys. But for me, I think, like you said, defense wins championships, and all the great defenses have carried their teams. And there's no reason for me to believe that this defense won't be better. There should be even better this year. You also, mentioned as far as free agency, William Jackson. That's a huge pickup for them at the corner spot. He's one of the best corners in the game as far as cover guys. So you get him in this defense. You have another year now from a Chase Young, from a Cam Curl. You think of Jeremy Reeves, a safety that came in later that really kind of solidified that free safety spot as well. So you got some young guys out there, and we already know at 19, they should get a player that helps them, whether it be a left tackle, whether it be a middle linebacker, or whatever, whatever they may pick. It should be a pick that's going to help them immediately. So, yeah, I agree. I think that they're going to be the favorite in my mind to win this division. I know they're going to be the favorite in their own mind, and that's a big deal in itself right there, because you're talking about a young team that has success lot of these guys right out of college come in the NFL and they win a division, they get a playoff game. They can look at this, and I know people keep scoffing at this when I say it, but they played the Buccaneers the toughest out of any of the teams in the playoffs, whether you like if, Vontae Davis, whoever wasn't playing in that game. Like I said before, Washington was playing without their starting quarterback. So, again, they played them tough. They weren't beating them, but they played them tough. And that should give them some promise. That should let them realize, hey, we're not that far off. If this team can go on and win the Super Bowl, why can't we have a chance to feel like we can compete for one this year themselves? So I'm really, really interested in this team this year because in years past, if they won a wild card game or even made the playoffs, it was as a wild card. And you just knew that maybe the division was so bad that year that's how this team got in. This year, you can say the division was down, but at the same time, even though the division was down, no one expected Washington to be 7-9, and definitely not 7-9 with all the injuries that they had and the situation that they had at quarterback, not having a stable person back there under center, for 16, 17 games. So you have all of those things in place now to possibly happen. I don't see why this team can't win 2-3 more games just because they're going to have, a quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick that has shown durability as well. So if he can play 16 games, if he is the starter, because I still think Taylor Heineke has a shot. I truly believe that. Whoever's the starting quarterback is, if that person can lead this team for 16, 17 games, I don't see why they can't win 10 games this year. And 10 games to me wins that division. Or if not, it's right there for the division crown.
Yeah, you mentioned Taylor Heineke. I really think they should be an open quarterback battle because I don't think Taylor Heineke gets that respect. He came into that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you think about the teams that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had to play and the quarterbacks that they had to play with Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I thought Taylor Heineke probably performed the best, against that defense, against that defensive line, because he was able to move out of that pocket and create plays on his legs. And he made some good throws in that game as well. Do you think that Taylor Heineke has a legitimate shot to compete and actually snag that starting quarterback job?
Oh, I do. I definitely do. I mean, don't even forget about Kyle Allen. I mean, they're going to have a competition, and it's going to make the best person rise to the top. Naturally, most people will say that's got to be Fitzpatrick because of his years of experience, and it very, very well may be the case. But whoever is named that Week 1 starter, put it like this: they're going to have earned it. It's not going to be a situation like last year where they named Dwayne Haskins the starter, named him a captain, and it was kind of, I know for myself, for several colleagues who were covered the team and were out there. That kind of took us aback a little bit, to just hand him a captain spot, because that doesn't go around lightly. You got to put the work in, and you have to have results most of the time in order to be named a captain. So, I know this year, clearly, whoever they name captains, they're going to have earned that, and it's going to be guys that are leading by example for sure. If it happens to be one of these 3 quarterbacks being a captain, which I think one of them probably will be, it's going to be the starter, whoever the starter is. I think that they're going to go in Week 1 feeling really good about whoever that starter is. But yes, to answer your question, I think Taylor Heineke does have a legitimate chance. He's going to have to play really solid ball, leading up to that first game. And remember, preseason schedule, it's going to be a little different because of COVID. Practices are different as well. It's still going to be some virtual practices, things like that. So I just don't think we're going to have that normal, OTA setup, mini camp setup. Then you have rookie mini camps, and you have mandatory mini camp for everyone. Then it leads into training camp and preseason in the regular season. It's just going to be a little different this year like it was last year. So if that's the case, then I think Taylor Heineke has an even better shot because he's going to be more familiar with the playbook than Ryan Fitzpatrick will be. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Definitely. And I think a quarterback competition will bring out the best in both guys and will make them step up
Mm-hmm.
to the plate. And that can only mean good things for the Washington football team in that offense. And we all know about that defense. That defense will come to play as well. So the Washington football team is definitely an interesting team that I'm looking at them and I'm like, I want to see how this team looks this year. But we all know this Thursday is the NFL draft. I'm very excited. I probably have not been excited about a draft in recent memory compared to this one because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent all across the board. I want to know how are you going to sit back and relax and watch that NFL draft? Do you have any plans, any big things coming up for the draft?
Yeah, I still have to figure out if I'm going out to the stadium Thursday night. I have to let the team know if I'm coming out Thursday night. Normally for the draft, I mean, obviously pre-COVID, I was at Redskins Park or now Washington football team. I know the Sports Performance Center, whatever. I used to always be out there, and several of us who cover the team, we would just sit in the media room and be there and have press conferences and things like that with the draft picks. And, last year we weren't out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know it's a couple of days left, but I was thinking about going out to the stadium, just to be able to see some fans, some friends, just get out, get some air. So I'll make my decision by tomorrow. I know you kind of put me on the spot there, but yeah, I'll make my decision by tomorrow before I know.
At least you got a head start on thinking about what you're going to do here on the show.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well, Mr. Lake Lewis Jr., I want to thank you for spending some of your time here on this platform. And I'm looking forward to having you on at some point again.
Oh, man, anytime. You're doing a good job. And, I like seeing young guys, especially young black men, aspire to do some things that I already know. I don't even know your full story, but I know one part of that story is people telling you can't do this. So, yeah, you can. Yes, you can. And I'm one that can tell you can do it, and you are doing it. So keep up the good work. And anytime you need me on, just let me know.
That was Lake Lewis Jr., and on to the next.